Welcome to Better Business Results. My name is John Whitt, and I'm your host. We work with business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, and sales teams to improve their businesses in 30 minutes or less. I'm a small business owner, a published author, and a recognized leader with FocalPoint International Business Coaching, where we have over 180 coaches on all 7 continents. Albert Einstein is quoted as saying that compound interest is the most powerful formula in the universe. Improving your business 0.1% each day can generate as much as a 24% improvement in less than 1 year. You can engage and harness this formula for your business by creating 3 action items in just 30 minutes each week. Let's get started. All right, today our guest is William Gordon with Strength-Based Spiritual Recovery. It's a new organization. William, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here.
So William, we always try to take the first part of the show and share a little bit with the audience. How did you get started in this particular business?
Well, for myself, I've done substance abuse treatment for over 15 years. And I started working within the criminal justice arena. My first job was at Rikers Island 15 years ago. And I worked in their juvenile detention center there. And one of the things I quickly discovered was that substance abuse was a significant part of almost every offender's life that came through our treatment facility. So that was my first introduction to it, and as a mental health treatment provider, substance abuse has just been parallel to most mental health diagnoses throughout the course of my career, all the way up until the present.
Okay, and so that's kind of how you got started. And we talked a little bit about what you're really trying to achieve from a societal contribution. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, ultimately what I want to do is to be able to use my talents and my strengths as a psychologist and to help people who are struggling with issues related to drugs and alcohol addictions. It's a significant need right now in our society. We have more people are dying today from prescription drugs than all illegal drugs combined. In Orange County is currently considered the crystal meth capital of the world.
No way.
Yes.
Wow. I had no idea.
We have things like one of the local high schools. I probably shouldn't mention the name of the high school. Its nickname is Heroin High. This problem of drug addiction and drug abuse is an epidemic, and I think it's currently the number 2 killer in America, right behind heart disease. And
so, how did again, you were at Rikers, I get it, but what pointed you to this profession? What is it about this that is so valuable and helpful for you? Well,
to be honest with you, I started with a very personal, selfish motivation, which was my own spiritual journey. Years ago, I found myself spiritually disconnected, and my lifestyle represented that spiritual disconnection. And when I was able to reconnect spiritually, I discovered that there was a strong link between substance abuse and my own spiritual journey. And at the time, I was working at one of the state prisons, and I brought some of my spiritual thinking into the treatment group I was running for addicts at the time, and they really just connected with the material, and it resonated with them in a very profound way. And one of the members of the group pointed out to me that every single person who is struggling with addiction is struggling with this ability to connect spiritually and interpersonally with people around them. So this program, as it currently stands, has been formulating in my head over the course of the last 7+ years, and I've just finally put it into a package, which is where it currently stands.
Strengths-Based Spiritual Recovery.
Yes.
It started in October of 2014.
Correct.
And shortly before that, you had gotten some signals from some people and sort of the universe that this was the direction. We want to share a little bit about that story?
Oh, sure. I had found myself within a very short period of time where a series of things happened to kind of move me in the direction that I'm in. One of the things that happened was I had made a proposal to the company that I was working for to create a strength-based program that I kind of had in my head. At the time, I was working as their training director for their internship program. When I made this proposal, it was greeted as an unnecessary expense for the company.
Okay.
So this is something that I was very passionate about, and I was looking forward to incorporating it into the interns training. And I'd already been doing that actually with many of the interns I was supervising. But once I made the effort to formalize it, that got shut down fairly quickly. About a week after that, one of my interns came into supervision, and she said to me, she doesn't want to talk about clients today. What she wanted to talk about was me starting my own company and having all of the interns come into work for me. I took that to be a nice sign. At the time,
That's
I thought
a great
it was...
sign. Yeah, that's a terrific sign.
At the time, I just greeted it as, some, minor flattery. And about a week after that, one of my coworkers approached me and said, look, I really like your overall spiritual philosophy and the way you supervise and think about patients and approach patients. And she wanted to start her own practice, and she wanted me to branch out and partner up with her to start our own practice. So in a very short succession, and there are a few other things that had happened. One of them was I was talking to a colleague back in New York, and I was criticizing my boss about the way they were running their organization. And my colleague back in New York said, William, if you think you can do it better, then shut up and do it.
Well, and that's the way it is. So it's awesome. The universe, right? God,
Mm-hmm.
however you want to put it, is giving you some signals that says, hey, I need to go do this thing, right?
Yes.
And so let's talk a little bit strengths-based, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You shared a little bit about your spiritual journey, so that's really helpful. Talk about the strengths-based part of your program.
Well, right around the time that I had come to this spiritual realization, I was introduced to the concept of positive psychology. And the strengths approach comes out of the teachings of positive psychology. And within that approach, the thinking is that you identify your signature strengths and you use your top 5 strengths, the strengths that comes to you most naturally in every single interaction, every single day of your life, essentially, which is essentially allowing you to find the most efficient path towards getting to where you want to get to. And one of the things that I found is that as I started to apply my signature strengths, it had a spiritual component to it because it allowed me to slip into the present moment and be connected with other people in a much more meaningful way. It kind of created a Zen-like experience when I started to interact with people. And also, the more you connect with other people, the more you're able to, if you can't connect to other people, you can't connect to the higher power and vice versa.
Okay.
Like I think the two of those things go hand in hand. So as I started to use my signature strengths in my daily life, they took on a spiritual feel to them because there is a level of mindfulness that using your signature strengths consciously in every single interaction created. And for me, the connection between the spiritual piece and the strength-based piece was just...
So how are you identifying strengths? How do you do that?
Well, I have a number of inventories that I use. The primary one I use is the strength-based inventory called the Values in Action Inventory. The reason I chose that inventory to work with substance abusers is because each of the strengths that are identified in that inventory are strengths that are used to facilitate interpersonal connections. I think people who struggle with addictions are people who struggle with the ability to connect meaningfully to other people around them. So I wanted that particular inventory as part of my repertoire. And through the course of the first month or so of treatment, I am constantly looking for additional strengths that I can help this person to fine-tune and utilize in their recovery process.
Okay, so strengths-based, spiritual, different, not something somebody else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about who can benefit the most
Mm-hmm.
from your service.
Well, I think anyone can benefit from my services. The people who might benefit the most would be adults over the age of 18, professionals, people who are fairly high functioning, people who are capable of actually recognizing and focusing on their strengths.
Well, and strengths-based training is something that the Gallup group came out. There's a couple of books out there. It's maybe not the same ones you're using, but a lot of organizations are familiar with that. So these professionals might be aware of this concept already.
Yes, it's something that I've found resonates very well within the professional community. Now, with that being said, I have worked with clients who didn't recognize that they had any strengths at the beginning of treatment. I've worked with clients where it took a couple of weeks for us to be able to say, oh, wait, I do have a strength, Can I share a story about this?
Yeah, please.
I had one client who came into treatment who he was homeless, jobless, didn't have a mode of transportation, and had a $200 a day crystal meth addiction. His drug dealer was somebody that lived about 10 miles away from where he stayed at night. So every day he found a way to get from point A to point B, which was 10 miles away, and had enough money to get drugs. So once we started working together, one of the things we established is that, well, you were creative.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You had perseverance, there's a level of grit, and once he was able to recognize, oh, I do have certain strengths, and then try to get him to figure out how to use those strengths in the pursuit of something other than crystal meth, we were able to really transform this individual's life, because he was able to now use some of that natural creative energy. He was a people person. He knew how to talk to people. He knew how to influence people around him, and to take that set of skills and use it in the service of something constructive was now a possibility for him, when prior to that he thought, oh, I could never do that kind of job, or I could never hang with those types of people or whatever.
Now, in this particular story, carrying it on, I mean, is this someone that would, they clearly benefit from the strength-based approach.
Yes.
But in some ways, I think maybe your strengths-based approach and the ability to identify this next way of operating and behaving may result in some greater success rates with people that are struggling in other solution opportunities.
Absolutely. I mean, I can tell
keep
another
going.
story about another client who was...
We like stories.
He was referred by the courts and had bounced in and out of treatment programs for, I don't remember exactly how many years, but when he came to us, he was angry and bitter and resentful that he was there and was being ordered to receive treatment. He spent his first week plus sitting in group with his arms folded, not participating, not engaging in the process. Once we started talking about signature strengths and we helped him to identify his signature strengths, there was a complete shift in his demeanor. Instead of focusing on the stigma of addiction and all of the bad things he's ever done in his life, he started to talk about things that he could be relatively proud of, and we saw he immediately began to lean into treatment. And once that relationship was established and he started to talk about things that he felt, proud of, we were able to get to the underlying pathology. We were able to get to the issues that the judge wanted him to address during the course of treatment. So this approach, even though I mentioned my ideal client might be the more high-functioning group, I believe anyone can benefit from this. In fact, I have worked with a number of clients over the years that have told me, I've many times they come out of treatment feeling more depressed than when they went in, because the only thing they talked about in treatment was the worst things that ever happened to them, the worst things they ever did.
Well, you're transforming them.
Exactly.
You're basically eliminating or reducing the substance abuse, which is a transformation in itself. But you're actually transforming attitude, energy, and behavior into something significantly more positive. So you've got a stronger, in many cases, have the opportunity to provide a much stronger transformational program and result than many other types of programs.
I have absolutely no doubt in that.
So at the end of the day, right? Somebody comes in, they treatment, they're successful. Yeah, how do they feel?
Well, they walk out of treatment knowing that there's something about themselves they can be proud of. There's greater self-esteem at the end of the treatment. There's more engagement in everyday life. One of the additional benefits that I failed to mention earlier about the program is that with most traditional forms of treatment, whether you're doing psychotherapy or taking psychotropic medications or anything like that, when you're done with the treatment, the gains of that treatment begins to happen shortly after you stop doing the treatment.
Yeah, it starts to drop off.
It starts to drop off. With this strength-based approach, we're teaching the clients a set of skills that they're likely to continue to practice beyond the end of treatment, because it's something that is naturally energizing for them. It has an element of immediate gratification. Once you start to use your signature strengths, once you recognize and begin to apply them, there's a high that comes from that. On a natural high.
Well, you start getting results.
You start seeing the results, and it becomes a self-reinforcing phenomenon. So we see clients who have completed the program and have completed this strength-based approach, still practicing the skills when we follow up and check in with them 3-4 months later. So those are the types of gains that we think are going to make the recidivism rate significantly less than your traditional treatment approaches.
So, excellent. So let's move to the second stage of the discussion, which is how do you like running a business?
I hate it.
It's not very, because what you're talking about the product and the service and the thing that you're excellent at, right? You're trained, you've got all of these things, and you're ready to rock. And then all of a sudden you got to go run a business. And so what happens with a business? We have things like finance, and we have bookkeeping, and we have to go find clients, and we have to figure out how to find clients, and we have to do all of that stuff, which has nothing to do with providing the services that you already provide.
I mean, using this same strength-based approach, my strength is being a psychologist. So now that I found myself as a business owner, I am finding that I need to get out there and do marketing and do all of these things that I was just completely ignorant about.
Right, and so you're having to. So I'm going to show you this. We're going to cut to a set of slides here called the sigmoid curve, and this is sort of the life cycle of a business, but it's the life cycle of just about anything, right? And we can talk about how that goes along, right?
Right.
And we'll talk a little bit about where you're at in the life cycle, and then how can we move you along a little bit faster, right? So this is the sigmoid curve, cycles and phases, right? And so it's actually a sigmoid curve is like a sine curve, right? And there's 3 sections to it. The one on the left, the first one is the learning phase. When you're starting up, you have to learn a lot of stuff, right? And that learning takes a lot of time and energy and effort, and it doesn't necessarily result in a whole lot of money right away. Right? The second phase is the growth phase. So once you've got your system up and running, and you've got marketing, and you've got clients, and all this other kind of stuff, now we can do all kinds of neat things. And then the last phase is the decline phase. And the decline phase happens to anything, whether it's a system, a model, a living being, or a business. At some point, something comes along and it's better, right? So evolution takes its process. And we'll talk about what do you do when you get maybe towards the top of the growth phase, and or you think you might be in the decline phase, right? Okay, but in the learning phase, there's several little sections we go through, right? The learning phase, the first one is the honeymoon trap. Now, the honeymoon trap is when we first get started. Now, we may have a cash reserve at the time, or we may have some fast, quick clients. In the real estate business, this happens all the time, right? I become a realtor and I sell my mom's house, right? I'm a perfect client right there, right? Or maybe I sell my brother's house or a family member's house, right? And I generate some cash. The rule of thumb here is that you want to stockpile that, because when you're in that learning phase, right, there's going to be times where the revenue isn't coming in, right? So once you've sold your mother's house, you don't have another house to sell, right? So the idea is don't go spend all that money, right? Build a cash reserve so that you have the ability to get through the downturn. And the downturns happen, all the time, anytime. We just went through one of the greatest, we went through the Great Recession, right? Biggest residential housing decline in, 50, 60 years since the 20s, right? So anyway, that's the honeymoon trap. Then we have this thing called the 3 feet from gold trap, right? That's hard work, right? You can see the line is going down. We're not making any money yet. We're having to learn how to do all of this stuff. And you can talk about your experience. You know, you've been there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have to keep working at it, right? The 3 feet for gold trap is that place where, you know, it's really just a matter of getting to that particular spot. Now, if you stop digging, right? If you stop working and you shift professions, right? You never get past 3 feet from gold, right? You have, this is like paying your dues. This is like earning your stripes. You've got to get to that particular stage. But once you've got to that point, now you build a model that allows you to kind of grow a little bit, and we moved up to this thing called the founder's trap.
Right.
And then the founder's trap is where we see a lot of small businesses today. In fact, a lot of my clients are sitting right smack in that founder's trap. And that's really where, you know, they've hired some people and they're able to run a business and they're generating a nice little revenue stream, but they can't grow anymore because they don't know how to do more business. They can't scale, right? And what happens is you have to have systems and processes in place to be able to scale, right? You have to hire a manager to manage people. You might have to hire supervisors to manage people, and then learning how to manage managers and supervisors and directors and vice presidents, and how do you scale and how do you do that? And how do you keep track of all that stuff? That's how you break out of the founder's trap. Ultimately, we've got the Midas trap. Now, as you can see, the growth curve is climbing up, and we've got a lot of success, right? And the Midas trap is where you think everything you touch turns to gold, right? And we take our eye off the ball, right? We've missed something that competition is doing. We miss a foundational technological shift,
Right.
And you know, we can quickly move into that decline phase. And so really what the Midas trap is, the way you avoid that is you keep your eye on the ball. You're always studying. You have a system, a model, and a process for keeping track of the events that are going on around you, so you don't get taken unaware or by surprise.
Right.
I mean, the story I tell about that all the time is BlackBerry. You know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, everybody had a BlackBerry. Now how many people have one?
What's a BlackBerry?
I don't even know anybody that has one, right? It actually used to have a name called a CrackBerry, and they're gone, right? Because everybody was on it all day long. And then ultimately we have the decline phase, and in this particular case here is you get into denial, right? You know, you can see where the curve has started to head down, and we realize that, you know, somebody just hasn't been paying attention, right? And what you want to do at the decline phase, if you look at it, is we could turn that right around. That decline phase could also look like the learning phase all over again, right? We could take it and relaunch this thing, and depending on where we decide to figure out where we start to work on the reinvention or the learning phase again, we could eliminate the decline phase altogether. We might just go through a little pause. Clients like Apple, they somehow seem how to refine and revise their process and come out with new products all the time. They never seem to be caught unawares. But there are plenty of companies that have been caught unawares. And we talked about BlackBerry, but you've also got things like Kodak cameras, right? They got hammered by the digital camera revolution. Swiss watch got hammered by the digital watch. In fact, the digital revolution hammered a lot of different companies. All right. So this is the model, right? Now the thing is that those curves and those phases can be adjusted, right? It depends on your industry, depends on your product, depends on your the ability to learn faster, quicker, right? So what phase are you in?
I am somewhere between the 3 feet from goal and the founder's trap.
Okay.
Like I'm right in that. In fact, I don't even think I've hit the 3 feet from goal as yet.
Right, you're still, you know, just in talking to you, you're still in the learning phase, right? And again, it's all of this stuff. It's marketing, it's sales, it's finance, and at some point when you bring your tap on, it's going to be leadership and delegation skills, and you know, how do we manage all these people? Because those are all things that are critical components to running a business, right? They're not critical to psychotherapy.
Right.
And so you've got to learn that, or somebody's got to learn that, right? And because you're a business owner, you're just getting started, there's only one person right now, and that's you. Unless you got a lot of money and you can hire a general manager to do that stuff for you, right? Well, most of us don't have a general manager yet. All right, so understanding that you're in that learning phase, right? What are the things that you can do? What do you need to focus on learning first? Right. So what do you think? Let's take this and we'll go to the next part of our show here, which is really starting to say, hey, what can I do for my business? How do I take my business and move it along and become more effective? So if you're in that learning phase, the first thing you have to do is figure out, well, what should I be working on? Right. What are your highest value activities? Right. So what do you think those are?
Well, my highest value activity right now would be to get new clients in the door.
Getting new clients. Right? So learning how to get new clients in the door.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what can you do to learn how to be more effective at getting clients in the door?
Well, I can tell you what I've done.
Okay.
But yeah, learning things like internet marketing, search engine optimization, how to network and connect with people who could be potential referral partners, people who we could establish partnerships where we can be more mutually beneficial to each other in terms of sending us clients and we sending them clients. So those are the types of things I'm currently working on fine tuning. I don't know how good I am at any of the individual components of
Okay.
that. At this
So
point.
how would you find out how good you are?
Well, right now I'm testing everything to see what happens.
Well, you measure the results.
Yes.
That's the classic one, right?
Yes.
You measure the results, and we always want to have better results.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have to ask ourselves, what can I do to get better results? So if
Yes.
you're measuring all the results, that's a good start.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize that, in this area here, I'd like to get better. What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you try something new and again measure the results again.
Okay. And how can you do that? How can you do it faster? You just want to do trial and error the whole time?
Well, if there are people who know how to do this, like if there are people who have established systems and so on in place, I would be more than open to, getting some guidance and mentorship along
Perfect.
the way.
Go talk to somebody who's been there before. That's
Yeah.
a great solution. So you could spend a little time figuring out who those people are that you want to go talk to.
Exactly.
Because when you think about the learning curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guarantee you can use trial and error. It's the oldest learning tool in the history of mankind.
Right.
But it takes time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the ways we get a little faster are, we read a book,
Right.
we watch a video,
Right.
we do an internet search, which is maybe a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
We find somebody to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
We take a class. We take a seminar. You talk to a coach.
Right.
Those are all things that can accelerate your learning process, right? So that curve doesn't have to be as steep or as long,
Right.
right? Or as deep, all those things. And the idea is to shorten that phase up as much as possible, right?
Exactly.
Now, if you get to the growth phase, or when you get to the growth phase, the idea is to how do we extend that period as long as possible, right? So in terms of that, you could talk to somebody else, right? So what else would we do about generating more leads or developing better strategic partnerships?
You know what? I'm not sure at this point. Like I said, I've tried every trick in the book that I currently have available to me.
Well, you need to find some new tricks.
I need to find some new tricks, yeah.
Yeah, how are you going to find the new tricks?
Again, consulting again, finding people
consulting,
who,
coaching, something like that. I
yes.
mean, that's the fast way to do it. And again, you can go on the internet and read and research and do a lot of things like that. So in terms of marketing and clients, I know you're doing some work with Google AdWords. That's been pretty successful.
Yes, yes.
Go
I
ahead.
recently started that campaign, and so far we've been getting good results from them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so that's one marketing cycle,
Yes.
right? I know that you're in a network marketing group because I'm in the same group. That's how we
Yes.
met in the first place. What's your next marketing strategy?
Well, I've been targeting churches because of the spiritual component of the program. I've been trying to connect with places of worship because clients who already have a spiritual foundation tend to, we can use spirituality as one of their strengths, and the research is suggesting that spirituality is a significant factor in the recovery process. So that's one of the targets. I would like to start targeting local colleges, maybe the wellness centers at some of the local colleges. Again, I can find high functioning people who are at that college level who might be struggling with drugs and alcohol and try to connect to them to establish some referral partnerships there. I'm trying to connect with lawyers. I'm trying to connect with basically anyone who works with and around people who are struggling with addictions. Employee assisted programs would be also a good
So do you
connection
find, and
source.
it's always nice to sit there, so I'd like to connect with, but do you find that to be a little bit difficult?
Yes, because to be honest with you, I just have a laundry list of people that I think would be good partners. The only ones that I've really been targeted and reaching out to actively has been the churches. All of these other ones that I'm listing, I just haven't made the first step. So
with
don't
the churches,
know.
how many churches have you contacted?
I've probably contacted about 200 to 300 churches.
Okay, and how many of them have become strategic partners?
I've developed some semi-tenable relationships with about 20 of them, and 2 of them so far I would say are strategic business partners.
And so learning how to get that done a little bit more frequently, because 300 down to 2, that's a tough return.
Yes.
A lot of effort, not a lot of return.
Right.
Right. So that's another place where you could talk about, where do I want to learn and grow? How do I make this thing go a little bit faster?
Right.
Right. Because if you could do that, right, and if you could get 1 or 2 or 3, 4 high quality opportunities, referrals, essentially from strategic partners. I mean, that would do a big number on your business.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And referrals are typically, a lot closer to becoming clients than anything else.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So for you, and we talked about coming up with the 3 ideas, right? They're learning ideas, they're growth ideas, right? So which 3, right? We talked about learning a little bit more about how to run this practice, a consultant or a coach or something like that, or what are you going to do there? We talked about getting better at identifying and creating strategic partnerships.
Right.
Right. And what else?
I'm not sure what the third one is. I would think it's, you said running the daily operations of the business, establishing strategic partnerships. The one part we absolutely have figured out is the clinical product.
Right.
Everything else needs work.
So it could be messaging, right?
Right.
How do I get this message out there? Now you have this video. You can take this video and you can do some things with this, right? It's going to be on YouTube here a little bit of time, and you can share that. You can send it to people. If you want, we can put some time together to figure out how to slice and dice it into smaller video segments, so that you could use this as an introduction to potential strategic partners.
Okay.
So you can quickly figure that out.
Okay.
These are all things that, so for you, spending a little time, not a lot of time, a little bit of time. The idea behind this deal is that spend a half an hour a week and generate 3 action items a week.
Yeah.
That's 12 in a month. That's almost 150 in a year.
Right.
That's a lot. That'll make a big difference to anybody's business if you put together 150 action items, especially when they start to build on top of each other. Week 1 we have level 1 action items. Week 2 we can have level 2 action items. We could have level 12, level 50 action items that actually build on the successes of all the other previous action items.
Nice.
Can make a huge difference. It's a very strategic model. So you've got your 3 action items. You know what you're going to be doing. And we want to check back with you sometime in the near future, maybe next month, 2 months, 3 months, see how things are going.
Okay.
And I want to thank you for being on the show. Before you leave today, we got to spend a little time before the show. We got to spend some time obviously on the show. What'd you think?
I love it. I think I like the questions you raised, and they're clearly things that I hadn't thought about in the same way that you're approaching them. So I think there's value in simply just going through the list of questions and thinking about where the gaps are in our current setup.
Well, you know what I try to do is I tell people we identify possibilities, possibilities for success, and possibilities for, be careful, right? Don't go here, right? We try to do both of those, right? And so, when you spend some time, just having these conversations, right? The time here on out, right, is significantly better, because this conversation, the thoughts, ideas, concepts that we came up with today never goes away. You don't lose it, right? You don't exhaust it. It doesn't wear out, and you can take this and grow it. So that's where the value really lies in. So this conversation, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 2 years from now, you'll look back at this conversation and go, that was different. And that's where the value really lies. So listen, William, I really appreciate it. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
It was a pleasure.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
If you'd like to be a guest on our show, contact BusinessWhitt at www.businesswhitt.com. Filmed in studio at John Whitt Enterprises, Advanced Coaching and Marketing Solutions, 2 Park Plaza, number 450, Irvine, California, 92614.